The Shawshank Redemption is more than just a story about a prisoner trying to break out of jail. It is a deep and multi-layered parable about freedom, hope, human resilience, and the fight against injustice. Depending on how closely you read the details and are willing to analyze the subtexts, The Shawshank Redemption can be perceived on many different levels. It is simultaneously an emotional tale of friendship and survival, a philosophical allegory about the system, an existential manifesto, and even a metaphysical reflection on the nature of reality. In this video, we will explore 6 levels of understanding the movie, from the most superficial to the deepest, from simple story to philosophical reflections. Each level opens up new meanings and allows you to look at the movie from an unexpected angle. Ready to dive into the world of Shawshank? Then let's get started. By the way, be sure to subscribe to my channel and click the bell too. Don't miss any of my new videos. Level 1. Basic. The movie tells the story of Andy Dufresne, a banker wrongfully convicted of murdering his wife and her lover. Over the course of 19 years, he adapts to life in Shawshank Prison, makes friends, earns respect among the inmates and staff, and develops a detailed escape plan. The main focus of the viewer's attention is on his attempts at survival and justice. This level is so easy that I didn't even spend much time on it. Let's move on to the next one. The second level is moral and ethical. The movie raises fundamental questions of justice and injustice, showing how a soulless system can crush the human spirit, but also leaving a chance for resistance and struggle. In Shawshank, the wardens use violence, fear, and bureaucratic machinery to break the prisoners, turning them into submissive slaves. However, even in this environment, there are those who retain moral principles. The contrast between Warden Norton, who uses religious principles as justification for his crimes, and Andy, who proves through knowledge and patience that it is possible to remain an honest man even in hell, emphasizes the ethical choices each person makes. Andy's story demonstrates that the key to defeating injustice is patience, faith, and the ability to maintain dignity. Despite physical and moral trials, he does not succumb to the system, but uses its laws to ultimately turn the situation in his favor. His journey is a symbol that justice is possible, even if it has to wait for years. The movie also touches on complex moral dilemmas, such as that justice in a system can be illusory if it is run by corrupt people. Andy's final revenge, exposing the machinations of his superiors and his triumphant disappearance, is not just a personal victory, but an act of retribution for all those who have suffered under the system. A good example that illustrates this level is the scene in which Andy plays a record of Les Noces de Figaro over the prison loudspeaker, symbolizing the freedom of spirit that cannot be taken away from the people. The third level is psychological. The characters of the movie go through a difficult path of adaptation to life in prison, and the viewer observes how the confined space, strict discipline, and lack of personal freedom affect the human psyche. Prisoners are forced to adjust to the new reality, to follow the rules. Otherwise, they will be cruelly punished. Gradually, prison ceases to be just a place of confinement. It becomes a psychological mechanism that breaks the personality. A vivid example of institutionalization is the story of Brooks, who spent most of his life in prison. When he is released, he is confronted with a world that has changed beyond recognition and realizes that he cannot exist in it. His whole life was based on routines, and the new conditions proved to be too unpredictable. As a result, he decides to leave because he is no longer able to adapt. This story is a powerful illustration of how long imprisonment can break the psyche, making a person incapable of life outside the prison walls. Andy, on the other hand, unlike Brooks, does not allow himself to be broken by the system. He maintains his inner world, makes long-term plans, finds ways to develop himself, and does not lose hope. His resilience is shown in the fact that even in prison he continues to think freely, finding a way out of the most difficult situations. The movie demonstrates the willpower of man and his ability to adapt. Those who lose the meaning of life break under the pressure of the system, but Andy shows that the main thing is not physical freedom, but freedom of mind and spirit. His ability to defy circumstances ultimately leads to victory over the system. For example, the scene in which Brooks is released from prison, but he cannot live free and decides to end it. This is a prime example of how the system can completely suppress an individual. Level 4. Philosophical. The prison in the film symbolizes not just the physical walls that restrict freedom, but the societal framework imposed on a person from birth. It is a system that controls people by imposing rules, roles, and limiting their ability to be who they want to be. Shawshank is not only a place of incarceration, but also a reflection of a society where power belongs to those who control information and resources, and those at the bottom are forced to put up with the conditions in which they live. Andy's escape becomes a metaphor for the human struggle against limitations and the search for higher meaning. He shows that freedom does not simply mean physical liberation, but is the result of an inner choice. Despite the pressures of the system, he does not break, but uses its rules against himself. Andy doesn't just want to escape. He wants to do it in a way that leaves a mark, to show that the human spirit is stronger than any prison walls. The movie touches on issues of human dignity. Is it possible to remain human when you are stripped of everything? Andy proves that yes. He maintains his dignity even when others break down. His story shows that freedom is, first of all, a state of mind. When a person realizes that he always has a choice, even if he is limited by circumstances, he already becomes free. For example, the famous dialogue between Andy and Red about hope, get busy living or get busy dying. This phrase shows that freedom is not just a physical state, but an inner attitude. The fifth level is existential. The movie touches upon fundamental issues of existence, such as the predetermination of fate, freedom of choice, the power of the human spirit, and the influence of external circumstances on the formation of personality. These themes are revealed through the image of Andy Dufresne, a man who finds himself in extremely unfair and difficult conditions, but not just survives, but maintains his identity and self-respect by acting against the circumstances. The protagonist embodies the concept of existential rebellion, about which the philosopher Albert Camus wrote. Despite the cruel, absurd, and unfair reality, he does not give up and continues to live, finding meaning even in conditions that seem hopeless. Andy refuses to obey the rules of the system, but he does so not through open rebellion, but through patience, cunning, and using the system itself against it. His resistance is shown not only in his physical escape, but also in his ability to maintain his inner freedom. The final scene of the movie, where Andy and Red are reunited on the ocean, becomes a symbol of the spirit's complete victory over the system. The ocean in this context is a metaphor for infinity, freedom, and a new life unbound by past suffering. This moment emphasizes the idea that fate is not predetermined and that man himself can create his own reality if he has enough will and faith in himself. And the final level is the illusory, metaphysical. This is the most ambiguous interpretation, and it comes as a bonus level, as not every person can agree with it. But still, any cinematic masterpiece can be understood in a very unexpected way. After all, it is art, and in art, there is no right answer. This level suggests a radical interpretation, according to which Andy was never in prison, and the whole story is just a metaphor for inner imprisonment. Shawshank Prison may be an allegory of his consciousness, where every event, character, and trial is a reflection of his inner conflicts. The escape symbolizes the process of spiritual awakening and liberation from mental shackles. Perhaps Andy was initially in a state of deep reflection, immersed in an illusory world, and his liberation is an acceptance of a new reality, or even rebirth. For example, the moment when Andy stands in the rain with his arms spread out after his escape, in terms of this interpretation, this is the moment of his awakening, coming out of his mental imprisonment and accepting a new reality. In this way, the movie becomes a parable about the nature of perception and the limits of human consciousness. Which of these interpretations is closest to you? How do you understand The Shawshank Redemption as a movie? Share your opinion in the comments. It will be interesting to discuss. Friends, it took a lot of effort and thought for me to create this video. If it gets at least 100 likes, I will be very happy. It will be a signal that you are interested in such videos. So, if we get 100 likes, I will see your interest and make a new video. Also subscribe to my channel, and I will see you soon.